Okay, this is the NBA DFS build for Wednesday, January 10th. Taylor Smith, Kevin Roberts. How's Kevin on Wednesday?
Doing all right. Ready to rock, man. How about you?
Not bad. Looks like we have 8 games today. A couple games hacked off that are later in the night. Not on the slate. They've been doing that lately. It's dumb, but it is what it is. Um, go through game by game here. A lot of early games starting right at 7 Eastern with high totals. So don't have to do a late night sweat with no late night games.
That's
And then
true.
we'll kind of go through and see who we're playing, who we're not playing, who's a fade at high ownership, that kind of thing. And let's see. I guess we're going to start with
Minnesota and
Sacramento,
Boston.
Minnesota, and Boston. Yeah, take it away.
All right, so this is what here? Let's see. Let's pull up the totals. It is a 224 total on Bet Online. Boston is favored by 9, but they have no Porzingis. They do have Tatum back. Who else are they missing for this game? I
I
feel
think
like.
that's it.
Oh no, yeah,
Holidays
because
and
Hauser's back. So just Porzingis is out.
yeah.
Anyway, so sorry. So starting on the Minnesota side, there's no Mike Conley for the Timberwolves. That could be big. That could make Naw somewhat interesting. Um, but I mean, the only guy I'm really actually is Rudy questionable.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so that's interesting. Towns would be very, very appealing, and Ant would be plenty fine. I think if Rudy's in, I'm probably only looking at Edwards and maybe a punt play here with Conley being out. What about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because like Alexander Walker's not really a point guard, but they could start him at point and just kind of run with Edwards at the point, which makes him somewhat interesting. But don't love the matchup with Boston having maybe the two best defensive guards in the league. Don't love the matchup for the bigs either, even with Porzingis out. Boston should be good defensively around the rim. Maybe Naz Reid if Gobert's out sees extra playing time, but I don't know. I don't really want to get to anything here, even with the injuries.
No, it's not really a super appealing game overall, so I'm kind of with you. But so far, there isn't a ton of value, so I definitely would pay attention to the Minnesota side, just in case. As we said on the Boston side, Porzingis is out. It looks like everybody else is in. Because of that, I'm not super excited to go here. Tatum is out. He's always in play. He projects okay. But nobody else really stands out for me here.
Yeah, this team's a little priced up after the other night. I guess if anyone, it would be Brown, just because I think Tatum will probably spend the night with Jaden McDaniels all over him. Not that he can't still thrive, but he's 10-3. I think Brown maybe is a better bet against Edwards at a cheaper salary. Otherwise, like you said, not much going on here. Al Horford 6'6". I assume he'll start, but preemptively priced up. Don't really want to play Al Horford even in a bad, or especially in a bad matchup.
Right, I agree. All right, so on to the Wizards and Pacers. Seemingly the top game to target of the night could be pretty chalky. 252 total, but it does have an 8.5 point spread. That's a little bit weird considering Halliburton's out. The Wizards do suck, and they're on the road. But, I would think they'd be able to keep this somewhat close, but you just never know with Washington. That said, on the Washington side, who stands out right now?
I think Kuz is a decent option. He's 7,800. Projecting for some ownership, but it's a good matchup. I like that he's under 8K. Shown a decent ceiling all season. Tyus Jones doesn't look bad either at 6 flat. He's been pretty good all season as usual. The minutes are the only thing with him. They're pretty volatile, but not a bad point per dollar play in a really good matchup against Indiana. That's really it. Maybe Avdia or Jordan Poole, but don't really want to chase the Jordan Poole game he had the other night, especially if he's going to attract some ownership at sub 6K.
Yeah, I think every Wizards main guy is on the table here. I think they're totally in play. I think the The only one that really stands out is, like you said, it's going to be Kuz. I do like Denny. He's just a volatile player, but he actually is picking up a good amount of ownership too, and so is Corey Kispert, which no thanks. I'll be staying away from that one. But yeah, I mean, Poole, even Tyus Jones, Gafford, all these guys are priced pretty nicely for a smash spot. So if you're into doing a full game stack or you just want some Wizards runbacks, I think you can play just about anybody. You can talk yourself into it. But if you want to hone in on one guy, I'm with you. It's Kuz. What about on the other side with the Pacers? Mostly just Halliburton out. And then, we want to pay attention to who starts, but who do you like before we know that?
It would be Nemhard if we could trust his minutes, but I really don't see how you can. I think he played like 12 minutes the other night in his first game back from injury. He should start, and obviously he'll play more tonight, but I think that's pretty volatile. He's a good price at 52, but I expect that would make him pretty popular as well. TJ is 6,700. I think that's still fine in tournaments. The matchup is about as good as it gets, and I doubt anyone's really going to want to pay a premium for him. Really good per minute guy as well. Otherwise, Miles Turner, like the Wizards get smashed in the paint every night. He should feast. Not that he's like the banger in the post type of center, but really exploitable spot, and 68 looks pretty good for him. Maybe Jalen Smith, though I don't really know if this is a matchup where he's going to see increased minutes. The Wizards aren't really a huge front court anyway, so he's been starting, but I'd be a little leery of him after a big game the other night.
Yeah, I kind of would be leery of everyone here. This is so weird because the game total is awesome. Pacers are at home. They're favored. No Halliburton. But the only guy projected for even remotely close to 30 minutes is Miles Turner. So, like, as far as safety goes and projection, Turner is probably the guy for me here. I wish he's a little bit cheaper just because. But, I mean, everybody is viable, but the projected minutes are a little bit scary for me. I think this is one of those spots where for GPPs, you can definitely talk yourself into any Pacer, and they look pretty good. But if they're all going to play like 25 minutes, who are you really feeling amazing about? I don't know. And to me, McConnell, the projection looks pretty good, but the price is a little bit high compared to the minutes right now. I'm not like super into it. So, which makes sense that he's not super chalky as it stands.
I think there's a path to more minutes than might be projected, but yeah, as things stand, it's not the most attractive thing.
And I would lean towards whoever starts. I mean, if McConnell starts, I might ignore the minute projection and just trust it and go with it.
If he starts, I'm sure he's going to project for more than 23.
Right. All right. So moving on to another pretty appealing game. The Kings Hornets game has a 230.5 total. The Kings are 8-point road favorites. They did play last night. Sabonis went off. He's projected to do so again, and rightfully so because the Hornets are terrible. Who do you like on the Kings side?
Yeah, I mean, Sabonis, like you said, it's Nick Richards. He's not stopping anybody. He should feast again. Kind of a triple-double machine these days. 10K flat, not really expensive enough. So love to get to him if you can. If there's enough value for that, I think that's quite attractive. Kevin Huerter started last night, got really popular as a result. I thought that was a bad chalk play, and he proved me to be correct. Cheap again, maybe won't be quite as popular on a bigger slate, but if he gets popular, I'm inclined to fade him once again. We saw Trey Lyles play a lot last night against Detroit. Not really sure what to make of that. He's not normally a guy that plays 30 minutes off the bench, so he is 3.9 if you want to take the flyer, but I would only do that if he's just not being played by anyone else. And De'Aaron Fox for 93 looks okay. Fine enough matchup, but I'd just rather get to Sabonis if I can pay up for a king.
Yeah, I mean, everybody looks good here. The Hornets are obviously an amazing matchup. There is always a slight, concern about the back-to-back. They could be a little tired and all that. But Sabonis, Fox are very good spends on the slate. Fox for the matchup might not be expensive enough. Sabonis definitely isn't expensive enough. Malik Monk is a little bit pricey. The only other guy I'd point out would be Keegan Murray. I think the price is just right. I think his projection feels a bit low. He's been playing pretty well too. So Not a priority by any means, but probably the third king that I would be looking at. And Kevin Herter is in play, and especially if people are scared off from last night. On Horn side, like I said, they're 8-point underdogs at home. But I mean, this is a pretty good game environment if they can keep it close. Who are you liking?
Rozier is the clear standout for 8,500. He's been quite good since LaMelo went out, since Hayward went out, since PJ Washington went out. Love the spot, love the salary. I think he's going to be really chalky as a result of all that, but don't really think it's a bad chalk play. Miles Bridges looks fine. He shouldn't be quite as popular, and he's 8,200. Tons of minutes for him with PJ and Hayward out. Fine with that, despite him being a terrible person. And then I guess you could play Cody Martin if he plays, but he's not really cheap. Don't really want to do that. If he's out, I think Nick Smith is in play. 32 minutes off the bench the other night with Cody Martin out. 4,200. I think he would look decent in a higher minutes projection.
Yeah, sure. I can't argue with that. For me, I would probably only go Rozier or Bridges. I think Bridges is an awesome leverage play tonight, though. Rozier's ownership is looking like it's going to be pretty disgusting. And we know firsthand that Rozier chalk can go bad very quickly. His role is amazing. He's been very good. The matchup is fine. But it's not like De'Aaron Fox is some crappy defender. He can definitely slow Rozier down significantly. So if Rozier is going to be the chalkiest player, I will consider fading him for sure. And yeah, Bridges is a POS, but he is a great DFS player, so he's in play. The other guy we'll mention, Nick Richards. It's not like Sabonis is like a stalwart defensively, and Nick Richards is going to get all the center minutes he can handle. So assuming he doesn't get in foul trouble, I like his minute projection and his overall projection just enough to keep him in my player pool. Next up is Spurs against the Pistons. This game is a nice 3.5-point spread with the Spurs road favorites with Cade Cunningham out. It's a total of 238. Starting with the Spurs, who are you liking?
So Trey Jones has been starting at point of late the past couple games. More secure minutes as a result, 5,800. Looks good. Detroit, obviously one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Happy to get to him, even as a pretty popular mid-range kind of guy. I think Wemby's in play, kind of as a contrarian upper mid-range spend. Even on a minutes limit, it's Detroit. They're dreadful. Wemby's still averaging like 1.5 points per minute. 24, 25 minutes, he can still get you 50 plus, I think. And 8-9's not necessarily too expensive, so I don't mind that. And Keldon Johnson, more usage off the bench, kind of leads the second unit these days. The Pistons, I think, have the worst second unit in the league, so I don't see any reason Keldon shouldn't feast on them. Don't love that he's 7K, but I would imagine that should keep his ownership down quite a bit.
Yeah, for GPPs, I think that's totally fine given the matchup. I'm probably not going to look at Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson at all. I do like the Trey Jones note. Pretty good price for a starter in a good matchup. And the only other note is the minutes, man, on Wemby. I had been on vacation for 10 days. And I came back and first really getting into it last couple of nights, and then so I hadn't done a Wemby slate in a while. So then I looked at the Wemby slate. I looked at the price. I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm playing Wemby tonight. And then we talked about it earlier. I was like, what is with his minutes lately? So if we cannot trust Wemby to get 30 plus minutes, I mean, even though he's been crushing in like 25, 26 minutes every single game, but I don't think I can do that. I think there's too many good plays right in that range or just a little bit above him. So while he is a good tournament play, just because he's Wemby and he has monster upside, I personally won't be able to do that at his current minutes. On the Detroit side, we know Cade Cunningham is out. I think that's it for them for the injury report. Who do you like here?
Isaiah Stewart is doubtful too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's doubtful.
So we saw Jaden Ivey and Bogdanovic pick up most of the usage last night with Cade out. I don't see any reason that wouldn't continue. Both look great. They're both in the mid-sixes, but not necessarily too expensive for the matchup and the roles they'll play. I think Duren is a good source of usage too in this situation. He got off to a blazing start last night, hit the skids big time in the second half. Wemby is the best paint protector in the league, maybe already, but doesn't play a ton of minutes like we were talking about. Spurs still give it up in the paint, even with Wemby in the lineup. So don't mind Duran for 7,100 if people are afraid to go back to the well. And that's probably it. Not playing Killian Hayes at 5,500 at what still looks to be some ownership. So probably just those main guys for Detroit for me.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm not on Pistons at all. Obviously, the matchup is really good and it's a tight spread, so it should be appealing to me, and it definitely will be appealing to a lot of people. Killian Hayes at 4-6 yesterday wasn't something I felt great about. So Killian Hayes at 5-5, no. And the other thing is Jaden Ivey is pushing 7K. Jaden Ivey is like the least reliable player in DFS, basically, and he's very scoring dependent. So across the board, there's a lot of problem areas here for Detroit. I can see the argument for them. They're drawing ownership for a very good reason, but I personally will probably get off of them, especially after they did so well. Like every starter, except for Hayes, who I ate the Hayes chalk yesterday, and every starter crushed except for him, basically. And I think Duran was doing great, and he had foul trouble, and then it turned into a blowout at the end. So, which, by the way, they were up 20 in the first. They lose by 21. Like, what is that? That's crazy.
They were up 20 in the first, and we're losing by halftime.
yeah, but then they just lose by 20 as well. So nuts. But Duran, Bogdanovich, Ivy, even Hayes, they're all in play, but I probably will stay away from them. But by the way, watch Hayes wreck and everybody else be terrible tonight. That's just how it goes, right? All right, on to Philly and Atlanta. There are so many good game environments tonight, and this is definitely one of them. This is the second best total we've seen so far. 243 total, 1 point spread in Atlanta, with Philly being the favorites, even without Joel Embiid. I think Atlanta might be missing some guys. I do not remember off the top of my head. I do know Clint Capella is questionable, and I think they might be missing somebody else.
DeJounte is questionable.
Okay, so they might be a little bit shorthanded. But starting with Philly, who do you like?
Maxey, of course, is the main standout. 8,900, tons of usage with Embiid out. Great matchup. Everything you could want, really. The Hawks are awful in transition D. That's where Maxey thrives. I would like to play him over Rozier if Maxey is really going to come in less owned than Rozier, but don't have qualms with either of them. Both are in amazing spots. Tobias at 69 looks cheap. We've seen him over 7K even with Embiid in, and now he's under it without him. Same great matchup for him against that awful transition defense. That might be about it. Paul Reed, maybe, but not that cheap. Oubre gets a boost if Melton sits. Melton's questionable, but beyond Tobias and Maxey, I don't see much else.
Fully with you on Maxey. He's my favorite play of the entire slate. I love that Rozier is coming in chalky because I will just pivot to Maxey. He's not going to be unowned or under-owned or anything. I think he's the second or third most owned player so far. So it's just, it's not really like a versus thing, but I just prefer him. Tobias is totally fine. Good price, good projection. Melton being questionable is a little bit interesting. Not so much for Oubre for me, but weirdly for Pat Bev. Obviously, Pat Bev is not super reliable, but he's only 4K. And on a slate with not a lot of value, Bev potentially starting could be kind of interesting for me, especially in a matchup like this. So I would look at him, and I agree, Paul Reed, a little bit pricey, does project well, and if he starts and can push for 30 minutes, he could be pretty good. But I'm hoping I don't have to go there. All right, on the Atlanta side, like we said, Clint Capella, DeJounte Murray, and Wes Matthews are all questionable. Who do you like?
So obviously a Kongwu becomes very alluring as the value of Capella's out, power forward eligible, which is useful in DK for 4,800. There's not really much here, honestly. Otherwise, I guess Capella's okay if he does play with no Embiid. It's a good matchup for him against Paul Reed. I guess if Murray sits, they're probably starting one of those Matthews guys, which is not alluring at all. Jalen Johnson, I think, is okay as a pivot away from maybe Keldon or Tobias. If those guys are going to be more popular, I think Jalen Johnson is a really good pivot. Tons of minutes for him. He's been great this season per minute. And I don't know, like Sadiq Bey, I guess, with no DeAndre Hunter, but I don't really see much I want to get to here. Trae Young's pricey, point guard's loaded. That's about it for Atlanta.
I mean, I will say Trey is the ultimate GPP play on a night where Maxey and Rozier are looking like two of the best plays of the slate. So, I mean, if you don't love Rozier and don't want to play Maxey, I mean, Trey is pretty interesting. Projects decently, and he's under 10K, so and he's not going to be owned. Jalen feels a little bit pricey to me. I don't like DeJounte even if he plays. I do like Clint if he plays. Good price and no Embiid to go against him. Sadiq is fine. Bogdanovich is fine. Obviously, I'm with you on Okongwu. He's a smash value if Clint is out. And he's kind of okay even with Clint in because he still gets minutes. But yeah, that's pretty much it there.
Bogdanovich might be a smash if Murray's out. But
yeah, okay, good call. Yeah, if Murray's out, obviously Trey, his projection's going up, and Boggy looks good too. All right, going to a less than desirable game on paper, anyways. OKC versus Miami in South Beach. The Thunder are 4.5-point favorites in a 233 total. It's actually a better total than I thought it would be. No Jimmy Butler per usual, but otherwise, I think just about everybody is there for both these teams. Let's start with the Thunder. Who do you like? Besides SGA, obviously.
I don't really like him anyway, honestly.
No, I know, but you always do. Like every slate, you're like, I like SGA.
He's always underpriced, and they're
right.
seemingly always playing someone that sucks, but not tonight. And
right.
Like we said, that's a loaded position. Not a good matchup for Chet. J-Dub looks overpriced. I guess you could throw a dart with Isaiah Joe off the bench, but that's terrible. So I don't think this team looks good at all, honestly.
Nope, I completely agree. I think SGA is always going to be a good tournament play. Weird that he's projecting for 12% ownership. I don't want any part of him, but if for some reason that shifts and nobody's on SGA, it's SGA. You can play him. There are no guaranteed studs. There's no Luka. There's no Jokic. I mean, you can do whatever you want up top, or you can just fade any would-be studs tonight. I will say Chet is a good price, and Chet can do anything. He's a beast. But yes, it's not a good spot. It's on the road. I'm not really sure why they're even favored necessarily. I guess with Jimmy out. But yeah, I don't love the Thunder. I'm probably going to fully fade them here. On the Miami side, no Jimmy. Obviously ups the usage for the main guys like Bam and Tyler Hero. Who do you like the most?
Lowry doubtful means that I assume Richardson and Duncan Robinson will play more minutes. So that's quite thrilling. I think Richardson looks okay, but if he's going to be popular, that's an easy fade, honestly. Not even a guarantee he starts. They could just start Robinson and play Hero as the de facto point guard. Hero's not a bad price, but the matchup's not too intriguing either. You can say the same of Bam. Jaime Jaquez, okay. I don't know. This game just kind of seems fadey if you're not eating the Richardson chalk.
Yeah, I wouldn't personally pull the fade card just yet on Josh Richardson, just because he's going to be a similar price to a lot of the other values we'll be looking at. And if he starts, that would be really interesting to me. But across the board, Hero's the only guy I really like here. Bam is fine. His prices come down. But I just think the ball is going to be in Hero's hands a bunch. He's way cheaper than Bam, and he projects pretty similarly. So I'm probably fading this game completely, but if I go here, it'd be Hero. Going over to Houston versus Chicago. The Bulls are 3.5-point favorites at home in a 216.5 total. Ugh, disgusting. This is going to be a slow defensive battle. This is probably a game where we could just fade it, but there are still some good plays to be had. Starting with the Rockets, who do you like?
Nobody again. Jabari looks okay for 62 or 63. Chicago's defense isn't great. It's kind of shoot type. That's kind of Jabari's defensive is right now. So he's fine. Minutes are a little up with Tari Eason out, but otherwise there's not much. I don't think Şengün and VanVleet are bad salary-wise, but there's a reason they're not projecting for much ownership. It's just really not a good spot.
Well, I will say Şengün actually checks all the boxes for me. I think he projects well. His prices come down. The Bulls don't rebound well. They don't really have any stalwart defenders inside. I feel like he kind of can do, all of his bag of tricks. He can do whatever he wants in this matchup for the most part. The total is a little bit alarming, but if I'm picking one Rocket to build around, it would be Şengün. I like the price. On the Chicago side, I believe we are at full strength here for the Bulls. Levine is back. He's at a 32-minute limit. Vooch is at a 28-minute limit. So I'm assuming you're not going to like anybody here, but let me know if I'm wrong.
No, Levine 67 is not bad, just because he played like 36 the other night. So if I get to anyone, it's probably him. But with everyone there, there's usage gets divided up pretty evenly. Rockets are good defensively. I don't see much reason to get to this team either, honestly.
No, it's kind of like how the Raptors used to be. They would always have 4 really good starters, but when they're all there, it's like, pick your poison. One guy will go off, but you don't know which one it is. I agree. Nobody stands out. I wouldn't be mad about playing anybody on this slate because none of them check in over 6 or 7.6K. They're all fine. And I agree, Levine's probably the play just because he's really cheap for how good he can be. Last game of the night is in Golden State. Pels are 2-point favorites. Mildly surprising. That might tell us that Zion's going to play. 234 total. Zion is questionable. I believe that's the only major news for this game. Starting with the Pelicans, who do you like?
It's not too surprising that the Pelicans are quite good, especially defensively, and the Warriors are quite not good. I think they have a worse record than the Jazz right now, so I can see why New Orleans is favored in this game. Ingram and CJ look good if Zion's out. Trey Murphy's on a minutes limit. Not really into that either way. Valanciunas has a lower minutes floor with Nance back. It's really just CJ and Ingram, maybe Zion if he plays for 79. That's not terrible. I'm confused as to why this game is happening 5 low time. It's not really relevant to anything. It's just really weird to me. There's a game in California starting in the middle of the afternoon, but yeah. What about
maybe
you?
they heard DraftKings is getting really inconsistent with their DFS slates. They're like, screw it, let's just start our games like 3 hours ahead of time. But yeah, if Zion is out, the Pels have decent value here. I don't think anybody's going to pop necessarily and be super reliable here, and some of the prices are kind of up. And Larry Nance is back, so he's kind of in the equation there. In any other matchup, JV would really stand out to me if Zion's out, but the Warriors like to go small, obviously, and that might limit his ceiling. So if Zion is out, I'm with you on CJ and Ingram. Probably that's it, but obviously you can look at Trey Murphy and Herbert Jones too. And JV is a fine GPP play. I just probably won't prioritize them. Last team here is the Warriors. And I'm assuming you don't love anybody here, but let me know.
No. I think Wiggins.
End of analysis.
Wiggins started the last one with Chris Paul out, but it's a pretty crowded rotation. It's a pretty bad team. Not great value, point per dollar wise. So this team might be the worst on the slate.
Perhaps. I will say, though, the only guy that stands out is Chef Curry. His price has come down from where it started in the beginning of the year. His projection's still decent, and he's not going to be owned. So, he's at home. The Pels might be down a key player. He can always blow up. He's definitely an interesting tournament play, especially since he's only 200 more than Maxey and 300 more than Rozier. That is definitely intriguing to me. So that does it for our game-by-game breakdown here. Before we leave you, sorry we ran a little bit long. We're trying to get these at 20 minutes, but this one will be about 30 minutes before we're out. Let's look at let's refresh real quick and look at the current ownership projections. And then based off those projections, give me your high-owned play of the day and your high-owned fade of the day. So right now, Rozier is coming in with the highest ownership and Maxey right behind him. Is there anybody on the board right now that projects to be very owned that you are going to eat for the chalk and are going to fade?
So the chalk I would eat is Rozier and Maxey, and Tobias. I think they're very obvious good plays. There are alternatives, though, especially to guards. So Not musts. I might set a max of 1 between Rozier and Maxi because I think a lot of people are just going to play both. That's one easy way to get a kind of different build. As far as fading, I think Nemhard makes for a good fade. I think Kispert is a very obvious fade if that holds. Killian Hayes, Jalen Smith, Neesmith, Kevin Herter, maybe even Alexander Walker. Not a guarantee to start, but yeah, there's a lot of very flimsy value that's projecting to be quite popular that I think you can easily come in on the other side on.
Yeah, it is kind of nice that the two chalkiest players right now are just admittedly probably the two best plays on the entire slate. And on a slate with no clear studs, it's like to me as if it's akin to if Luka and Giannis were on the slate and were like both projected for 40% ownership, and you're just like, okay, fine, I'll play them both. But you don't have to pay nearly as much. So I might end up fading Rozier just because he's the chalkiest play and because it's the Hornets and they can get housed. But I will eat the maxi chalk probably no matter what. I'm probably with you on Tobias as well. And for fading, the only one that I definitely will fade is Kispert. I have no interest in a guy who can only shoot jumpers and do nothing else, and his minutes aren't even necessarily guaranteed in the first place.
Yeah, he's playing like 18 minutes a game this month.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously can catch fire, but even if he scores 20 points, he might get you 21 fantasy points. So, like, what is that?
He's not burying you if he scores 20 points.
No, he's not. No, but he's not gonna. You're probably not gonna win. You're not gonna get takedown with Kispert, I doubt.
Right.
All right, that does it for us for this Wednesday. Hopefully, our process helps you out a little bit, and hopefully we'll be back tomorrow. Either way, good luck, and we'll see you next time.